Hi, great, it's Miss Frannis, and today we are going to be talking about plagiarism, and hopefully you've been reading those PowerPoints that I've been presenting to you because the first one was about MLA citation, and we're going to kind of be reviewing that this year. And the next one, or last week's, was about plagiarism, to remind ourselves that we shouldn't plagiarize and we should put stuff in our own words, or make sure that it's quoted, make sure it's paraphrased, and then we still put that information on the back of our works cited page. So today we're talking about avoiding plagiarism, rule number 4. And when using somebody else's exact words, use quotation marks. So today you have this chart, and one side is the original passage, and the other one is how you rewrote it. But there could be some mistakes because perhaps you didn't cite it correctly, or you didn't put the full quotes correctly. So we're going to go through it, and we're going to talk about why it needs to be corrected. And if you were to hand this in, you would need to make the corrections, and then you would turn it in. And of course, right here, that is where we got the information from. We got it from Scott Rogo. He is the one who wrote the book. So we're using this in our paper. And it's all about, do animals have ESP? Very interesting question. So here are our original passages, and I'm just going to go paragraph by paragraph, and we're going to correct them that way instead of doing the whole thing at once. Many people report instances of ESP involving the pets. For example, when a dog appears to know when its owner will arrive home, even when the owner comes home at different times each day. Scientists too have found evidence of some animals' predictive abilities. For example, animals that seem to be able to predict catastrophic events such as an earthquake or a tornado. So that's from your original passage. Oh, and I forgot to say, you should probably have a highlighter and a marker. Forgot to add that. That might really help you with this. So if you don't have one, pause the video now and go grab one. Okay. So move this up a little bit. So this is the passage that you rewrote. And you have, some people believe that animals have ESP. Some dog owners, for example, have observed that their dog seems to know when they will get home, even when their schedule is unpredictable. Scientists too have found evidence of some animals' predictive ability because these animals seem to have predicted natural disasters. And this is where you got it from. So what in here needs to be changed and what is a little different? So comparing the two passages, you actually have a direct quote right here. Scientists too have found evidence of some animals' predictive ability. So that part right there, you can highlight that. What could you do? Well, you could technically put it in quotes because it is the author's exact words. And you did cite it right down here with Rogo 44. So you did cite it. So you could put it in quotes, or you could also rewrite it, which would probably be a better way of doing it. And remember, you have to kind of change that sentence structure. So you could do something like, there is some evidence, comma, scientists have found that animals can predict things. Because these animals seem to have predicted natural disasters. So you could rewrite that. So it makes your paper more interesting. You still have to cite it, you still have to go here, but you could completely rewrite it, and then it would just stop there. Predict things instead of predict natural disasters. Or you can say animals can predict natural disasters and end it there. So however you want to rewrite your sentence, you can. Or you can quote it and that way you know that the quotation is right there in your paper. But we're going to be doing a lot of quotes, so maybe you don't want to overquote your paper. That's for sure. So the world of animal ESP research received a boost in 1968 when two French scientists, writing under the pseudonyms of Pierre Duval and Evelyn Monstradon, reported their new technique for testing the ESP powers of mice. So you rewrote it. Rogo reports that the world of animals ESP research received a boost in 1968 when two French scientists reported their new techniques for testing the ESP powers of mice. You're going to notice that you did something here. Yes, you have part of the quote, but you did eliminated some of that, which is you have the world of animal ESP research received a boost in 1968 when two French scientists, and you excluded writing under the pseudonyms. You excluded all of that, but you have reported the new techniques for testing. So you included a lot of this, but you didn't include the whole quote. You have to show whoever is reading this that you cut it down. So how do you do that? We're going to put our little caret here because we're going to insert something between scientists and reported, because that's where we ended up cutting. What you're going to do is you're going to put little brackets between scientists and reported, and you're going to put 3 little dots. And notice, this is why I said you should probably rewrite this up here, because you're using a quote here, and you don't want to overquote your paper. You just don't want to do that. Since this is a pretty important quote, it's a good idea that you would rewrite the top passage here, so that would allow for you to have that quotation on the second passage, because this is a pretty important quote. Whew, it's been a long day. And so you have to remember to put those brackets with those 3 little dots, and that means I kind of cut some stuff out because it really wasn't necessary, but this isn't my exact quote, even though a lot of it is. So you have to show the reader that I didn't quote it exactly, almost exactly, but not exactly, and this is what I left out. So that's why you have those little brackets with those 3 little dots. And of course, don't forget your period at the end of your sentence. Even though you put your parenthetical citation there, you still need that period. So you got part of it done. Moving on to the rest. Okay. So your original passage here, it talks about some tests, and it talks about telepathically what canines can do, and what happened when people were on one side of the room, and then what happened to the beagles. And so it's an interesting passage, so you can just go ahead and read that on your own. And after you do, I'll give you a couple minutes there to do that. So you've rewritten this by saying, Dr. Astrid Esser tried to determine whether dogs could use telepathics when their master or canine cousins were threatened. And you got that from Rogo 54. His first experiment involved 2 hunting dogs that were placed in a room with an observation window. So here you kind of added something, didn't you? You added the word tried, and because you did, you have to put that in brackets. Since you added that, tried needs to be in brackets. And right here, this phrase, you might want to change that, because you want to make sure that it matches. And since it doesn't match in our original post here, we have to put responded telepathically, so it makes sure that our quote flows. So we have to change that. of course, somebody forgot the brackets, and then your period goes outside of that bracket. So because you added tried, you have to put that in brackets, just like you do when you take out things. You have to add those 3 little dots in brackets. You have to put it in brackets if you add or subtract. So that's just kind of think about that when you're quoting. And if you don't want to do that, then make sure either you quote directly or you don't add things. And then of course, your parenthetical citation at the end with a period. And then you have to make sure that your sentence matches the exact text. We have the next one, which is this up. This is kind of an interesting write-up about what happened when the owner of a dog was escorted to another chamber, and what the dog did and what happened. So I'll let you read that. And if ever you don't have enough time, you can always pause it, and then you can continue when you are done reading. So if you don't have enough time, you can always pause. Okay, then our rewritten work says, the dog's owner was placed in another room and instructed to shoot at colored slides of animals flashed on the wall of the room. The dogs in the other room barked and whined when the hunter was shooting, although they couldn't see or hear him. So we have some problems here because of our original text. We need to add quotation marks to our quoted text. So we did not do that. What is our quoted text? Instructed to shoot at colored slides of animals flashed on walls of the room. I just highlighted it to show you. So you need to make sure you put those in quotes because you got that directly from the source. Another, even though it's tiny, I know it's tiny. I know it's a tiny phrase, but you got barked and whined straight from that quote. So yeah, you can quote in the middle of the paper. So even if you use just a little phrase of it, you still have to quote it because that's not your words. That's kind of, you know, that is what they wrote. And even though it's short, you still have to quote it because that is from their original passage. Other than that, you did your punctuation correct. So you got your parenthetical citation at the end with a period, perfect. Finally, our very last paragraph here, and it talks about more tests that they conducted on animals to see if they had ESP, if they could do prediction. So I will let you read that. So that is the original, and this is what you came up with. Rogo explains that Esser then conducted a series of follow-up tests. In one, a mother dog in a different room from her puppy was seen cowering when her son seemed to be in danger. So sad. So they're really trying to say that animals are very, susceptible to ESP. They can predict things. So going back to our original, we do have a problem. Again, we need to add quotation marks because we quoted the text exactly. So it is conducted a series of follow-up tests. We have to put our quotations there. Because it's quotations, we actually can do our parenthetical citation, and it would be from ROGO 55 with a period right there. Another thing, you don't really have to do that either. It's totally up to you because you have Rogo here. So since this is already in your paragraph, you don't have to do that if you don't want to. So you can take that one out and just put a period there. So it's kind of up to you. you know, if you want to quote it again, or you can even just put 55 in parentheses. So there's a couple ways you could have done your parenthetical citations on this one, but I just kind of wanted to let you know there's a couple things you could do. Parenthetical citations aren't set in stone. I mean, they kind of are, because you have to put the person's last name and the page number, or you have to put the title in quotations with the parentheses and the period. The structure is the same, but sometimes you don't need to use it, but you can if you feel comfortable, you know, if you don't feel comfortable not using it. So I kind of showed you why you could or why you don't have to. And this is one case where you don't have to, because Rogo's right there. So it kind of explains that the author is talking about this, so you don't really need the parenthetical citations, but you can include it. You definitely don't need it down here, because you already included it up here, and the paragraph is talking about Rogo anyway. So I know there's no set rules for, you know, parenthetical citations. There are, you know, some things that you do have to know, and they are set up very similar, but you kind of have to use your judgment sometimes on if you need them or not. So that last paragraph, I wanted to kind of talk to you about that. But anyway, we're going to be doing more work with parenthetical citations next week. I think next week. And I will see you then. Bye.